America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
I'm Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network. And today joining us is Herb Morgan. He is a candidate for California State Controller, an investment professional, and a leading advocate for government transparency and accountability. Herb has built his campaign around a simple but powerful idea. Taxpayers deserve to know exactly how their money is being spent. And government officials should be held to the same transparency standards that they expect from the private sector. Herb, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, give us a little bit about your backgrounds, your story, and what made you decide to enter this race in California.
Well, the only place I could enter is California. It's where I've lived my whole life. And so I have spent the last 40 years in the world of finance. I sold a few companies, bought and sold, sat on a number of corporate boards of directors over the years, audit committees, small business, medium-sized business. My last episode was I founded a company in 2004. It was an investment management business. And I had the good fortune to sell that to a major Wall Street firm in 2017, joined that firm as chief investment officer, and retired in March of this year, March of 2026. I just still have a lot of energy, a lot of passion, a lot of experience for service. So rather than trying to play pickleball and golf every day, I decided it would be good to look for a way to sort of give back. And California is in particularly great need of assistance when it comes to finance. Large-scale financial operations here are not run very well. We could talk in detail about it. And I thought, what a great opportunity to completely shift gears to an industry I don't know much, but I knew nothing about at the time. And we're just having a wonderful time doing it. The reception's been fantastic.
For those people who may not understand the importance of the state controller, tell us why that's so important.
Well, in California, we have 8 constitutional executive offices. Everybody's familiar with, let's say, the governor. But the controller is one of the financial positions, along with the treasurer. The treasurer is rather perfunctory, just manages the banking relationships. But the controller is endowed by our 1879 Constitution with the task of pre-auditing all state expenditures. So in other words, before money is released, the controller determines if it's legal, if it's properly authorized, if it's going to the right individuals, and ultimately the controller signs the check or the wire request and authorizes it. Then after the money's been spent, the state controller is responsible for going back and verifying that the state got what it spent money on. Were there measurable results or outcomes? If we built a bridge, was the bridge completed on time, on budget? Were there financial shenanigans associated with the construction of the bridge or the high-speed rail or whatever? And the controller is not just responsible for state spending, but all of the state subsidiaries. We have 58 counties in California, 482 cities, and then all of their subsidiaries, police departments, dog catchers, water boards, school districts, universities, high schools, colleges. All of the spending goes through and is the responsibility of the state controller, and he or she has plenary authority to audit anything or anyone that touches state money. And this is particularly interesting right now because the vice president has spent a lot of time in California, along with First Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Saley. There are very serious allegations of fraud related to California spending, of which we could go for 4 hours. I don't think you have that much time on, but That is appropriate right now. It is at top of mind, tip of the spear for all of Californians.
So you had one of the strongest Republican performances in the primary. What do you think voters are starting to wake up to in terms of the spending? I mean, they clearly believe that you're needed in this position and that it's not being handled correctly now.
Yeah, it's true. And it's not really a ideological position, right? It's not policy or politics. It's sort of an operational competence position, in my view. And Californians are not as crazy as the rest of the country thinks we are. We tend to be on the margin, somewhat liberal in many respects, but when it comes to our finances and our money, we're actually universally conservative. Nobody in California, no matter where you stand on the ideological spectrum, is in favor of money being stolen. So we have a $320 billion budget for the year that ends this month, June 30th. July 1st, we have a new budget. It's $355 billion. And when you look at the metrics for performance, and I think you're in Florida, right? Your metrics are really quite good. We're anywhere between 45th and 50th in really every deliverable. So whether it's the best place to retire, 50th, best place to start your career, 50th, business friendly climate, 50th, weird things, school bus safety, 48, drunk driving accidents, 49th, cost of living, 50th. The list goes on and on and on. So the citizens are saying, again, this is not ideology. This is, hey, we're paying the highest individual state income tax rates. We have the highest tax absolute number per capita. We have the highest tax rates at low income. You're at 9.5% when you're making 75 grand in California. It's ridiculous. We have all of these things, and the student and the citizens, regardless of where you are saying that's not right. What can we do to drive efficiency, modernize government operations? Maybe we need a business executive to come in and take a look at this, as opposed to continuously electing politicians who have moved up the ranks and kissed the right rings, it's been 20 years since we elected somebody with an R after their name in California at statewide executive position. The math tells me they're ready. And as you mentioned, we had the strongest performance in the primary, over 3.2 million votes. And yes, we're still counting in California, so that number should go up a little bit. But that's more. Myself, along with the Attorney General candidate, Michael Gates, we both set a new record. He beat me by about 100,000. He keeps reminding me. But we did set a new record for an R in California in a primary. We're super proud of that. And we had far more votes. Each of us had far more votes than there were Republican ballots cast. And that tells you that our message is not partisan. It's just operational.
So I do not think the people of California are crazy. But
thank you.
But I do think, and living in Florida obviously gives me, just a completely different perspective on how state government is run. Excuse me. But I do think that there is a belief, regardless of party, that government can do it better, that there's a feeling that government should be doing certain things that goes beyond what, say, constituents here in Florida believe. And I'm just wondering, as you go around the state and talk to people, are you hearing any kind of change in my perception of what I think people believe? Because I don't think they're crazy. I just think they believe that government has a bigger role than maybe folks here in Florida think.
Yes. So as I go around the state and I talk to people about that, I think the citizens of California are compassionate and they're okay with paying for programs of compassion, whether that's education, healthcare, outreach, infrastructure. They're okay with that. And I think that kind of crosses party. The other thing that crosses party is there's this realization right now in my time on the road. They say to me, it didn't work. Okay, so we're funding our programs of compassion, $320 billion this year, $355 next year, and the homeless is the best example. We spent $24 billion and it's gotten worse. I live in San Diego. You can walk San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Riverside, Santa Cruz, any of these cities you walk, and there's the fentanyl bend. There's camps everywhere. They're stepping in things. It's a mess. And so they're realizing that the delivery mechanism we chose, which was money goes from the state to the county, then the money goes from the county to a nonprofit. And then the nonprofit is supposed to be administering aid. And again, we're okay helping people. Like, we're compassionate. Californians are. But if the nonprofit it does not have proper financial controls, it is the job of the state controller to prevent the fraud. I am the one that wrote the paper on the fraud, $425 billion. We delivered that to the president. The president announced the investigation into fraud has begun and appointed J.D. Vance. So this is like, my fingers are all over this. But the problem was, we got so rich so fast in California because of technology. We've nearly doubled our state budget. It was 185 billion 7 years ago. We're at 355 going into next year. So that's just a couple billion short of a double. Yet no service or no metric has improved. We just pushed the money out so fast. And if we had a competent state controller, he or she would have said, okay, if we give you $100 million, LASA, here's what we want in return. We want reports. We want attestations. We want audits. And what the state controller is on record now is saying, we don't have the resources to do the audits. And I say that's absolutely incorrect. We more than have enough resources to do it. We're the richest state in the richest country in the history of the world. We have a $4.2 trillion economy. I can do the audits. And what I propose is, rather than doing audits post-event, meaning 3 years down the road, and then just barely choosing one or two entities to spot audit, most people go decades with never being audited. We're going to use artificial intelligence models to conduct real-time audits daily as spending takes place. We're going to build something called the Transparency War Room. All transactions will be reported automatically and electronically on a daily basis into the War Room. Think NASA control meets Wall Street trading desk. And then we will flag items for human intervention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliver massive economies of scale to the state controller's office, prevent fraud in the first place. That's the job of the state controller. And then when we find fraud, I get to walk down the hall to my new best friend, the attorney general, and say, look what I found, do your thing. And your thing is prosecution. And the fact that we're doing it will also prevent others from considering doing it. It's preventative. It's the perfect solution. It's called radical transparency, because we're radical in California.
So why do you think there's such a fight against the transparency and uncovering the fraud that's going on, not just in California, but in other states like Minnesota? I mean, it's clear that there are real problems happening that is wasting taxpayer dollars. And the deflection that goes on from politicians, deflecting away from what's happening in their very own states, and somehow always trying to deflect to the whole, like, just hate Trump, just hate this guy. If you hate him enough, you won't see what we're doing. I mean, wouldn't any politician, regardless of party, want to show and speak in terms of what you're saying? I mean, you said you wrote the paper. I didn't know that. You wrote the paper that brought the investigation to the state. And while we all probably believed that these organizations didn't have the constraints on them, with the amount of money that they were getting through the state to do the things that, yes, your constituents believe in. I mean, there's real proof here. There's so much fire. Yeah. There's so much smoke and fire together. People do believe there's really bad things happening right now.
They not only believe it, but we now know it. We have definitive proof. So I launched a sub website to my campaign website. So you go to herbmorgan.com, you click on California Radical Transparency. And what I did, the state was tasked with a transparency project of 20 years ago to provide this online access to the citizens of the data. They launched a program called Open FizCal, fiscal but FizCal, and it failed. They spent $1 billion. It didn't work. I took 8 days, spent $1,500 on Claude research credits. We rebuilt the entire system. We've relaunched it on my website, herbmorgan.com. Click Radical Transparency. And not only do we have all state spending for the last 3 cycles live, searchable, but there's an AI bot. It's called Ask Herb. So if this is what we're going to implement, any citizen should be able to call up their controller. Obviously, with 40 million people, we can't do that. So we created an AI version of me. But if you're a citizen of California, you want to just go online and you ask Herb a question about the finances, anything. Herb himself, AI version, will answer your question with facts and data and without the political hyperbole. And you ask the question, how does it get to this point? And why don't more people sort of recognize it? Why are people still saying, no, it's not happening, the theft isn't happening? And I can tell you this, when you go to the movies, you know who the bad guys and the good guys are. But in life, in business, in corporate America or political America, the bad guy doesn't know it's him because he thinks or she thinks they're the good guys, right? And so they get involved in something and they see somebody next to them doing something. Well, if they're giving a contract to their husband or wife, or I'm giving then it's okay for me to give a contract to my fraternity brother from college, right? And if I'm awarding the contract over here and then my daughter comes in and gets a job there that's paying her a couple $100,000 a year, but she's not really showing up for, then if everybody's doing it, it must be okay. And then people begin to justify their own immorality and their own bad behaviors that they're doing. And then once you're in it, there's almost no escape. But what I don't think anybody accounted for who was in this and involved in this cycle and circling of money and recycling of money and basically laundering of money is they didn't account for artificial intelligence. So when I get in office in January, we are not only going to be prospective about disclosing and analyzing all state spending, but we are going to go back through 8 years, the past 8 years of transactions in the state of California. It's impossible to analyze that much data. It used to be impossible to analyze that much data. Using AI and building search models and building analysis models, we can analyze unlimited amounts of data, not only on a daily basis, but I can go back 8 years. So we're going to be able to show. So I tell this to everybody. Look, if you don't believe there's a problem, no problem, right? Let's let the data do its thing. If you believe there's a problem, we might show that. But, we had this thing where Gavin Newsom announced 2 days ago he's being investigated for criminality. He and his wife were being investigated. And he wanted to get out ahead of it and say, it's, a witch hunt, Trump weaponizing the DOJ. Well, that investigation, by the way, began a long time ago under the Biden administration. This is a continuance. So he must be getting a little bit more nervous now. But the point is, anybody who ever opposes the audit, that's the first place you need to go, whether it's the audit of the voter rolls. We could talk about voter rolls. But here we are in California. What I'm simply saying to everybody is we have the technology to end the debate. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there wasn't 425 billion. I feel really confident in the work I did in my white paper. But if you don't think I'm right, wouldn't it make sense to sort of open the books for everyone to see? And then we'll just know. And then we can stop fighting about it. We can move on to serving the citizens of the state of California.
So I was asked this a few days ago on another show. I was on a podcast, and I was asked, why does it seem like the public outrage isn't there, whether it's California or Missouri or some of these other states that they're looking at? Why do you think it feels like the public outrage isn't there? Is it the media not covering it up? Like, what do you think? I mean, I watch it. Let me just give you an example. And it's outrage over everything, even bad candidates for office. Like, for instance, in Maine, the Democrat who just won the primary there.
Wow, I know.
I was asked, I was as a woman, I was asked, where's the outrage over him? And why isn't it happening? And I said, because conservatives expect outrage. to be organic and authentic. And conservatives don't know how to keep the story alive. And the left funds it.
I will say, I used to think people would say, fake news, and I thought that was hyperbole until I got into this industry. Because I have reached out to every major news organization in California with my idea, and I have pitched them and said, this is what I can do. This is what I can build. This is how I can deliver efficiency. I have a plan for the franchise tax board, which really impacts small business owners. You can't get service there. I have a plan for the unclaimed property division, and we can go on and on and on and on and on. And I keep saying this over and over. Math is not partisan. But these news outlets won't cover the story. I write editorials. I send them in. They won't publish any of them. In fact, this is my favorite, the San Francisco Chronicle, right? I hope you're listening. I really want your endorsement, San Francisco Chronicle. Look at me. And I say to the San Francisco Chronicle, this is how I will modernize and update and improve the services to the state of California. Now, my opponent in the race, no financial background, zero, none, zilch. She was an administrative assistant to Mayor Gavin Newsom, had her condo foreclosed, had her business taken away because she failed to pay her $800 franchise tax fee to the state of California. The controller is the chairman of the franchise tax board. So the whole thing is sort of ultimately it's irony wrapped in an enigma. Why is she in this office with no discernible financial skills? And the Chronicle said, you're right about that. And it's okay, great. So in their endorsement of her, they said my plan was too ambitious. And it couldn't be done. So that prompted me to go do the plan, build it ahead of entering the office. We launched it at CaliforniaRadicalTransparency.com or through my website, herbmorgan.com. We launched all of this. And I've now written to the San Francisco Chronicle and saying, you said you would consider endorsing me if you felt I could do this. Well, I've done it. And I did it for $1,500, not $1 billion, which is what the state spent on a failed fiscal disclosure system. So I'm waiting for the San Francisco Chronicle. Now, to be fair, the Sacramento Bee, which is McClatchy News Group, they are also a left of center paper. They did an honest interview, an honest assessment, and they gave me a full-throated, wholehearted endorsement. So there are some honest news outlets, but not many. And it's really hard to get any media coverage in California unless you have a D after your name. They own the media.
Which is essentially what I said. That's where the outrage is. And I watched.
That's where the outrage is.
Dana Bash from CNN go from questioning why Democrats were getting behind Graham Plattner in Maine, in spite of the fact of what's come out on him, because as a woman, she was reacting as I did. And then over time, I watched the story change. Her narrative change went from this is terrible and don't we have standards to, well, our standards are we must stop. We must stop the Trump administration from doing what they're doing. And the only way to do it is if he wins. And so that's become the narrative. It's like, okay, we'll just look away from that. And so we miss the outrage of what's happening. And one of the most famous examples I can think of in California for what seems like just thievery of taxpayer dollars is the high-speed rail project. It's a symbol of government inefficiency. And I'm curious how many leaders, political leaders, or anybody who touched that money has been investigated or gone to jail.
Nobody's gone to jail. Nobody's got investigated. But here's what we did as the controller candidate, not even the controller. There's the two most questioned items by Californians are high-speed rail and Los Angeles homeless spending. Those are 1 and 2, top of the list. And then Medi-Cal fraud is number 3. Within my CaliforniaRadicalTransparency.com website, I created a separate section just on high-speed rail. So you can go, any citizen, you don't have to be in California. If you have a web browser in Florida or wherever you are, you can go and you can get detailed questions answered about who got the contracts, what did they do, Were there deliverables? How much track has been laid? Is the right of way established, et cetera, et cetera. We're going deep on that, very, very, very deep on the website.
Well, I mean, I love the things that you're saying, and I'm glad that you're getting Californians to hear what you're saying. And I'll go back to what I said. I don't think Californians are crazy. But now I understand they want to invest in the social programs. They just want the money to be used correctly. So despite the fact, I always mess that up on which one I'm supposed to use. Despite or in spite.
Despite or in spite, you go for it. I know your meaning.
That you have an R after your name. I agree with you that math is not partisan. I love that saying. I always say 2 + 2 will always equal 4, but I like your saying better. I think that people still want to spend the money on the high-speed rail, on solving the homelessness, on funding healthcare for people who can't afford it. But they do want to know in California that their money isn't being wasted and squandered away. And I think that's the message that I'm hearing from you that's probably resonating with Californians.
That is exactly the message that is resonating. Math is not partisan. This is a partisan office under our Constitution. So I have to say R or D. But I gave an interview a couple weeks ago to the San Francisco Examiner, also center left publication. The interviewer was, to his credit, quite fair. But at the end, he hit me with that zinger. He said, "Oh, you are an R, so how can people believe you? You're for this and mass deportations, and you're, of course, a racist, and da, 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 da." And I said, "Hold on." He said, why did you not change? Why did you not go independent or Democrat or something like that? I said, look, I've been an R my whole life. My parents were R's. My mother was an R because she was marching for civil rights. Okay. And he goes, what? And I said, look, I'm an R because Lincoln won the war. Because the long history of my party is the right, whether it was the anti-slavery, which was the beginning of the Republican Party, whether it was the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution by the radical Republicans. Now you know why I chose the word radical transparency. Whether it was the Republican Party, who was the initial advocate for women's suffrage, whether it was Eisenhower, who sent the troops into Arkansas, whether it was the Republicans who started the whole entire civil rights movement, right? I've been an investor my whole life, and I always look at the long term, not the short term. I'm a Catholic, and my church, was the Catholic Church always perfect? God, no. We had the Inquisition. We had other bad things or things I disagreed with. I didn't stop being a Catholic. So I'm not going to stop being a Republican if maybe there's something going on right now by one person or one area that I think, I'd do it a little differently. And this office, the state controller, is about capability, experience, competence. I'm going to deliver results. Your businesses that need to call, you do business in California, you got to file a return here, as you know, and trying to get through to the Franchise Tax Board for a simple question to get a simple answer. They will only give you their first name, not a last name. That will change. Taxpayers will be customers. They will be assigned case officers. They will have the case officer's full name. They will have the case officer's direct dial phone number, and they will have the case officer's email. And the case officers will be measured on their ability to deliver service to our customers, not our subjects. If you pay taxes to the state of California, which businesses all over the world do, you will be given service by my team. That's not partisan. That's not political. That's just driving efficiency. I had this happen to me. My 2023 tax return, I got a notice from the Franchise Tax Board. You owe us more money. And I called my accountant. He said, no, they're making a mistake. I'll take care of it. Typical thing. It's $3,000 or $4,000. So the accountant gets involved and he's doing this. It took him 7 phone calls. 6 times somebody said okay, yes, we agree, we'll fix it. They never fixed it. They hung up. Well, you can't call that person back. And so each time it's an hour plus to get on hold. You have to re-explain the entire problem. And then ultimately, They're sending me letters now. We're going to take over your assets. We're going to seize things for $3,400. Finally, my accountant says, just pay it. Pay it, pay all the interest, pay all the penalties, just take care of it. Eventually, the system will catch up. And that's what I had to do. And then about 2 weeks ago, I got a check in the mail for my 2022 or 2023 return saying, yeah, you're right. We did it wrong. And it caught up and I got the money back. That has to change. That will change when I run the state controller's office.
Yeah, they either say you have time or money, right? you can't have both at the same time.
You can't have both.
That's impossible. Well, I love what you're saying. I love radical transparency. I think that obviously the voters of California, your message is resonating with them. I think that message would resonate with taxpayers across the country. So, good luck to you. And I wish you luck in your campaign. Tell everyone where they can follow you and learn more about your campaign.
Well, thanks for that opportunity. It's been a pleasure being your guest. I am on every social media platform at Herb, the number 4, you can see at the bottom of the screen, at Herb for Controller. The other thing, I need your help, and I need you to comment on the social media, repost it, retweet it. The comments help the algorithm, which gets me greater exposure for this idea, this common, decent idea. And if you're able, go to herbmorgan.com, make a contribution to this campaign. My job in the campaign is to be the spokesperson, to be the implementer. I've also made a substantial contribution, but it only works if many, many, many people are part of this movement and this initiative to modernize, update, and deliver proper government services to the citizens of California.
Well, Herb, thanks so much for joining us. Radical transparency, something not only California needs, but the rest of this country needs for sure. So I wish you all the luck. Candidate for California State Controller, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your vision with us. And thank you all for taking the time to listen to Main Street Matters. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, and we will be back soon with another episode. Bye for now.